Hello, my name is Jeff, and this is the Trade Movies podcast. I'm wearing my hat in a very tall hat, old Tennessee style for you. Thanks for joining me. I kind of wanted to talk about the format of the podcast just to explain it a little. Basically, the way every episode is going to work is I ask a guest to pick a movie for us to watch separately, then I pick a movie for us to watch separately, then we get on a podcast to talk about it. I love doing these little movie trades with people. For me, it opens me up to things that I wouldn't normally watch or may not be like on the top of my list, and that happened this week with my guest Tyler Poffenberger picking a movie that was not on the top of my list, but I ended up loving. So yeah, just want to give a quick intro and also say content warning for suicide and self-harm. There is no way to talk about this movie, the movie that I picked, or the movie that Tyler picked, or any of Takeshi Kitano's movies really, without discussing like self-harm topics. So just wanted to put that out there. And also, spoiler alert for this and all episodes, will generally just be going deep into the movie. So anyway, thanks. Hope you enjoy. And yeah, third or ninth time saying it, but thanks for listening. Really appreciate it.
Throw some colors on the screen and paint me black and white. I want to see a thief in a gunfight or a heroine wounded in love. You can keep her lighted by an old flame left to frame, so I can read the feeling on her face, half in shadow, and know I felt that too. In danger and in love, you've got the dreams I was dreaming of, and I've got 2 hours to pretend. So I watch a movie with a friend. Time's running sideways, and reality's gotta meet me halfway. So I'll meet it here again. Here's the Trading Movies podcast with friends. Okay.
Hello, welcome to Trade Movies podcast. I'm joined by Tyler Poffenberger, aka Ace, who is a local malcontent and filmmaker. Hello, Tyler.
What's up, man?
How's it going?
Happy to be here.
Yeah, likewise. So this week we'll be discussing Tyler picked George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, 1978. The I think it's the director's cut. On my little thing back here, it says the Cannes version. So I guess that's the version that they played at Cannes Film Festival, I guess. And I picked Takeshi Kitano's Hana-bi, 1997, also known as Fireworks. So yeah, format-wise, listeners of the pod, please let me know if you have any questions about or comments on format or whatever else. But we're probably just gonna get into the movies a little bit quicker because I think we're both looking to talk about them. So I'm gonna guess. I've been wanting to kind of do this about guessing why you picked the movie. I think you told me a little bit. I want to say that you said it was your favorite movie, but I'm gonna guess. Well, you picked it because it was your favorite movie, and just I don't know, that you felt like you could talk about it on a podcast for a couple hours. What was the reason?
Yeah, so it's one of the top 3 revolving favorites that I have, but it's one that's been there for a pretty long time. And yeah, it's one that I think I could talk a lot about, and it's one thing I think that I thought that you would enjoy it because it is
cool.
It's like a filmmaker's movie kind of. There's a lot of things oh, that's a neat little thing they did there.
Yeah, I took a couple pages of notes while watching it. It was pretty fascinating. It was I really enjoyed it. I had never seen Dawn of the Dead. It's just one of those movies I'll probably end up telling this story a whole bunch. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but my dad, when I was 4, he showed me, and not showed me, but I was in the room while he was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that scared the hell out of me. And I just didn't watch a lot of horror. I remember him arguing, not arguing, but talking with my mom. My mom's like, "Don't let him watch that. He's 4. What are you doing?" And my dad's like, "He's 4. He's not going to remember it." But I did. I remember, I vividly remember it. It's and freaked me the hell out. And then I didn't watch another horror thing probably until I was 12 or 13, and I watched The Ring with my dad, and that scared the hell out of me. It's I think it came out 02, 03, the American one. And so I have a pretty big blind spot, I think, for horror, and in a lot of ways it's been rectified a little bit, but I still haven't seen The Exorcist, and a couple of the other big ones. My older brother Matt, I'm the youngest of three. He also was big into Friday the 13th and like Freddy Krueger and Chucky and all that stuff. So he always used to scare me with the masks and stuff too. So yeah, it was cool. Having said that, I love this movie. This was great. So appreciate you picking.
Yeah, no, it's like a good little. It has horror elements, but it has everything. It's got storytelling, it's got comedy. Sometimes it's intentional. Most of the time it's not. But I feel like that doesn't, even though it's like schlocky, and there's some people that are gonna watch it and just think like, this sucks. This is so B movie and cheesy. But it's a product of its time, and I feel like George Romero stayed an indie filmmaker his whole career. No matter how big he got, like with his other projects like Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead, it never broke into feeling like a Hollywood movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It always felt like bare bones.
The only movie I've seen of his aside from this was Night of the Living Dead, which I saw in college. But I think that's it. Which I also love that movie. I have a funny story I can tell you about that movie. I'll try to remember to tell it later. But yeah, that's cool. Why do you think I picked Hana-bi. Why do you think I picked Hana-bi?
I don't know if you picked it like as a counter or like as to Dawn of the Dead.
Sure.
Because I feel like I was like, man, because originally I was gonna pick In Bruges, of course, but and I was like, I just changed it because I feel like I could talk more about this one, and then I feel like In Bruges is sort of a better pairing with Hana-bi, just in terms of like the dreamlike quality. But I like how different Dawn of the Dead and Hana-bi are.
Yeah, I picked it. So I picked it because you had mentioned that it was your favorite movie. I was kind of going around like on a couple different things. I was going to pick White Zombie because I haven't seen White Zombie, and I was just looking at what's the earliest zombie movie. And I think that's, at least on Letterboxd, like in some of the lists I found, that's the earliest one. But then I was thinking, like, honestly, just so we'll get meta. So I think I met you probably a year or two ago as I was getting back into filmmaking. I want to say we met at like Casual Pine or something. Both hung out with Zach, and yeah, we've always like it's always been fun hanging out with you. So I wore this shirt. I don't want to get up, but oh god, I'm wearing my shirt from have you seen King of Comedy with
Scorsese?
Yeah, so I'm wearing a shirt. It says I have a gun on it, like the note. I was wearing that because yesterday Tyler was making me laugh quite a bit in the park as we were helping our buddy Zach film something with this gun. And so I picked this because it's like we haven't had a chance to, I think, hang out. We've always like too much, and I thought it was interesting because like I don't know, I feel like I'm curious. I wanted to talk about like sort of the idea of if you can sort of tell something, like I don't know much about you, but how much you can tell about someone by like their favorite movie or like what's in their top 3 or like whatever else. So I figured I'd just counter it with like Hana-bi's also, it used to be Heat. I would say probably there's like a 2 or 3 or 4, like Time Bandits was my favorite movie when I was a kid, and then Heat was my favorite movie for a long time. And then Hana-bi, as of a couple years ago when I watched it, I was like, that's my favorite thing I've ever seen. So yeah, honestly, just wanted to swap favorites.
It's
Hana-bi hat too.
Nice. Hana-bi, I would say, is now in those like revolving 3 or 4 movies that are my favorite at this point. After watching it, I'm like, man, that's awesome. It's amazing. It's amazing. Everything about it, it was perfect. I can't wait to talk about it. I'm like, we can talk about Dawn of the Dead. I feel like I've talked about Dawn of the Dead a lot in my life, but I'm really looking forward to talking about that. I took also a couple pages of notes when I was watching Hana-bi.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you didn't pick. Like, I've seen In Bruges. It's been probably since it came out. I was talking with Taylor last week on the pod about it's kind of like I used to torrent movies quite a bit, and like they're all from like 2007 to 2010 because that was like the years that I was like torrenting a ton of movies. So like I just have this old thing, and In Bruges I think was around there. So like watched it just when I was like going off to college last year, high school type stuff. But not that I don't like it, but it's funny. I'd be curious. Do you think these like Hana-bi and Dawn of the Dead have like? Did you see similarities in it? Because I was actually surprised when I watched Dawn of the Dead. Like I think I saw like a couple that I thought were really interesting.
So there's, I feel like there's like a pacing thing that's pretty similar because I remember watching when I first put on Hanabi, I was like, I had high expectations, but I was thinking like, I was like, it's that there was one scene where he like walks into the hospital when he's visiting his wife, and it's like this whole scene of him like walking into the hospital and walking across the lobby, and then like walking to the elevator and walking upstairs, and they took like 30 or 40 seconds to show this like transition of movement, and I was like, that is, to me, it was like the sign of good filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like if you spend that time and keep people engaged, then you're doing it right.
My brothers talk about that with Columbo. My brothers and my buddy Trev, they're big Columbo fans, and they always talk about this one episode where he's dialing like a rotary phone, and he takes like 90 seconds to do it just to dial a number, and it's like you would never show that anymore, but they just love kind of the pacing of like the old stuff like that.
It gets you more invested because realistically, like, it takes time to do things. So like if you spend that just a few minutes of being like sort of mundane, I think it pays off whenever things pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing I really liked. Honestly, the thing I really, when I first saw it, like I was completely blown away by the editing. Like when I rewatched it this time too, like I just kept noticing like he would put like I'm trying to remember the scene he did it in, but like he like puts like a minute and a half of dialogue like that runs kind of ahead of like where the visual stuff is. Like he'll portray a whole conversation, but then you don't see that conversation until like a minute and a half later or something like that, or you don't see like where they're having it. So it's like, yeah, it's like a very dreamy thing, but also in the mundane, like, because he's just he's just kind of dissociating the whole time as he's like thinking about suicide.
Yeah, are we getting into Hanabi?
We can, yeah. I mean, we can go wherever we want. Yeah.
So I noticed one thing about the movie that I really liked, and that's the sound design is really, really good. But the way that he uses, well, first thing, when I read that Joe Hisaishi does the score, I was already like super high on the movie at that point.
Crazy, right? So bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it works. It is like a fucked up, depressing live-action Studio Ghibli movie in a way.
Yeah.
Like, it has all the heartfelt tenderness. Seriously, it has all the heartfelt tenderness of like a Miyazaki film, but it's also like a really brutal mob movie, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
But his use of the sound design, I was thinking, a lot of times during the really intense parts of the movie, it's quiet.
Yeah.
Like the first few times it shows the flashback of the spoilers, of the people getting like shot through the stomach, there's no sound.
Yeah.
And when you finally get the flashback of it happening, all you hear is gunshots.
Yeah.
And then later in the movie, it's just like they cut out the sound when really crazy shit happens. Like, to me, that's better because it just, you're not paying attention to all the noise. Like, a lot of times in movies, you'll get overstimulated. I feel like more now than ever, but like, yeah, he just made everything quiet, so you just lock into what's happening. It was, I was super engaged with it.
Yeah, he's always like, I think since his second movie, he's done like written, directed, and edited by Takeshi Kitano. He always like, I think he did like one or two movies. I think he might have even done one movie where he didn't edit it. And yeah, that's always been inspiring to me because it's like, that's probably in my first the short I did with the last year, I did written, directed, and edited by me, because it's like I can't imagine. I can't imagine someone will like. I'll probably outsource that stuff to anybody, just because like the editing on his movies in particular, I just think like, I don't know, it's so it's crazy. Sound editing, like visual editing. Yeah. It was interesting. So on the similarities, I thought they both were going to end. The main similarity, I thought, well, a couple of them were like, I thought they both were going to end with suicide. So like I thought that was fascinating. Like they honestly, like, thematically, I thought, like, so Dawn of the Dead, and this is gonna be a spoiler heavy episode because I don't think you can talk about these without it, but I thought,
They're
like,
both pretty old. They're both like over
yeah,
20 years old, so you
yeah, they're
can.
both, yeah. Um, the thing, like, they both honestly almost have like a similar plot. Even like it's just like zombies, but like to me, because like Hana-bi, I think is it's like a movie about a guy making his wife's days, like last days, the best he can, and he's like kind of helping his friend not kill himself. Dawn of the Dead, it's like you have that plot with the I can't remember the character names, but the guy, the main two people are like kind of also making their last days, like it's almost seemingly their last days, like just kind of as good as possible, like in that mall where they're like kind of living more like, you know, hedonistically or like whatever else. But I was surprised at like that level of similarity, and even down to the or what the hell is the character's name, the guy who decides, like, I thought he was going to shoot himself in the head but he doesn't.
Peter.
Peter, yeah. Yeah, I thought like this is just, I was like, this is just Hana-bi. It's like
So
zombies are coming in, you know.
Yeah, in the original ending of that movie, the woman puts her head out, Gail. She puts her head out. I don't know if her name's Gail, if that's Fran's the name of the character. The actor's name is actress's name.
Yeah.
But she sticks her head out of the helicopter, and she, in the original cut, puts her head through the helicopter blades, and he shoots himself. So the original ending of the movie,
Oh, okay.
them killing themselves.
That's
But
fascinating.
it tested so poorly that they had to change it. It was like, this is sad.
That's funny.
They didn't. Yeah, I know. And then Takeshi just does whatever the fuck he wants, I guess.
Yeah. He
Romero wasn't as brave as him, I don't think. There, because it would have ended. I feel like it would have been like a good ending there. They had like months and months of like a really hedonistic existence during like a zombie apocalypse. That's as good as you can ask for, you know?
Yeah. I'm so it's so funny that that's the thing that made it test poorly, because like I was thinking, like, one of the notes I wrote is like, I thought I was going to be picking the sad movie, and like Hana-bi is really sad. I mean, to your point, it's got the mixture of sad and romantic, but like Dawn of the Dead is one of the most dismal views on America I think I've ever seen. Like, it's the most, like, we're such a rotten country, like, and I couldn't believe it. I knew, like, I mean, he has a bunch of that, and like, although I think he said it's like some of the like racism stuff at the end of Night of the Living Dead was like not even, like, I think he said it was like not even directly like intended as like an anti like racism allegory. He was just like, oh yeah, the guy gets shot, but then like it's hard to see that without seeing that. But yeah, I was just like, I don't know, it was like a really brutal view of America. It's funny that, I guess it's just funny that tested poorly. Like the ending, like being like, if the ending was suicide, that's the thing that tested poorly, as opposed to like just watching like a million dead Americans just like walk through a shopping mall, you know, because we have no other culture or like a place to be.
I mean, zombies at their core are just consumers.
Yeah.
So they didn't even change that much. They just stopped talking. That's it. Yeah, that's it's really hard to talk about the movie, because I was like, I want to talk about Dawn of the Dead, but I feel like everyone talks about like the social commentary. But it's really hard to talk about it without mentioning that, because it's one of the things that I feel like Romero's always done really well. Is social commentary. But the heavy-handed part is them obviously going into the mall, and after they're dead and not knowing why they're there, just like rambling through the mall. Like the heavier part is actually the social commentary on the living people: Peter, Fran, Roger. I should have all these like off top, but Steven, Flyboy. I was gonna say Flyboy. Yeah, that they have a lot of the good stuff. Like they all like represent a different like id. I would guess, with Fran being like the matron figure. And then Peter is sort of like the in charge guy, but then at the end of the movie, obviously he tries to kill himself, so he's not doing that well. He loses all his friends. Roger sort of seems like he's dealing with the best, but then in a way they all, if you think about it, especially with the original ending, which is how I try to interpret the storytelling aspect of it, because that's what he wanted to say, they all do things intentionally to cause their own death. With Roger, it's like going out there acting crazy whenever it's happening and getting bit. Peter would have shot himself. Fran would have put her head through the thing. Steven, well, they could have just let the bikers go through the bottom of the mall and just like clear out their stuff, and then whatever, they could have lived. And then he started the whole shootout.
Yeah.
So every character is responsible for their own death in that movie. Basically, every main character.
Yeah. It's like, it's funny, the archetypes. It's also the very American archetypes, as me and my buddy were joking about that. Like, he understood almost probably better than anyone, like just the inherently, I feel like, American desire to go shoot up a mall. Like, there's probably just some of that's, I think, in like every American, like the violence combined with the consumerism, and just like there's something that I don't even know if it's like I don't even know, like, understand even what I'm saying here, but just like, I just thought, like, you know, the desire to live in a mall and also shoot up a mall is just like, it just felt extremely American to me. Like, I was just like, okay, I get this. Like, yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the most hopeful scenes, like the middle of the movie, because a lot of it is like, but the only times you see them really like express any joy during like the middle of that movie is with alcohol, or whenever they find the money and they joke around like holding up the cash, and then whenever they find the gun shop.
Yeah,
there's like the three parts that like spur the characters on during the movie.
That's so American. That's just like, yeah. I mean, we were playing around with that prop gun, definitely a prop gun. Yesterday, just while we were shooting this movie,
It was a prop gun.
Yeah. It was a prop gun. I was just thinking, like, man, I should get a gun. Like, I kind of get it. It's just cool to have and wave around and just play with.
Dude,
like,
imagine having that just like right next to your.
Yeah. You know. I just put it in my sound kit. I was just like, yeah, fuck it, just go everywhere with it.
Yeah. Yesterday during this, just for the listener, yesterday during the shoot, there was an altercation that happened, I guess, above the little underpass we were on. And I was like, that's one of those situations I was thinking about afterwards. I was like, man, it's a good thing that we have the gun, not real gun, obviously, but we have the gun and this guy doesn't.
Yeah.
This guy was ready.
Probably had a gun, that guy. I'm guessing they both had guns. Yeah, we were filming.
That guy.
Is he on film?
I don't know. You I mean,
I got him on audio. So there was for the listeners, we were filming underneath like this underpass, or it's just kind of this bridge. It was like this little tunnel under this bridge in Maryville, Tennessee. And we hear like a screech, and it's like right below a three-way stop, and like we hear a screech, and then we just start hearing yelling, and so we cut because it's like we don't pick that up on the audio. We were just wondering what the hell's going on, so we kind of got close, and you know, it's like, oh god, I need to get Ben or Zach to send me the audio file for it, because I was trying to just like creep up sort of with my boom mic backwards and just record it and turn it up from far away. Yeah, and it was just like, you tell your wife to get back in the car. You tell her to don't you talk to me like that. I'll get in my car. You know, it's just some stupid shit like that.
Yeah, the wife was trying to defuse it. He was trying to kill somebody. You touch my wife, I'll kill you.
Yeah. Dude. But Tyler and I had like a little Goodfellas moment. Because like he was like, his character had the gun and he was about to run up to see what was going on, and he just handed the gun to me. It was just like, I don't want to run up on these people with a gun, so just like, but it was like the scene in Goodfellas when Henry gives Karen the gun.
Yeah.
I was, had the same reaction. I was like, to be honest, it kind of turned me on, just like it hitting me.
I have to admit, it turned me on.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, ooh, guys, of course. And then I just walked up with the gun in my sound kit and just trying to record them without them seeing me.
They weren't looking in your sound kit. I was dressed like a cop. They're going to look at my waist.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot you had the badge on.
Yeah.
You should have just tried to defuse it. That would have been really funny.
If I ever do anything like that and try to fly off the handle during a shoot, just start filming.
Yeah.
No matter what happens. And post it. Even if you have to post it to Live Leak,
Absolutely. I've always wanted to be on Live Leak. In one way or the other. Yeah, so this got on it got on a couple, so yeah, Dawn of the Dead, I mean, we can go back and forth between the movies. I think like Dawn of the Dead got on my um I have like a keep a whole bunch of lists on Letterboxd for just random things. And there's like a list I had originally started to like keep track of post World War II movies, but it's about like movies concerned with the creeping rotten influence of America. And it's like this movie is obviously with the consumerism and everything squarely on that list. Interestingly, because you brought up Joe Hisaishi and the music and stuff, I think a similar thing to what you're just talking about like the only time they feel kind of happy. The other movies that I think feel a bit like this from Kitano are there's a movie Brother, which is the only American movie he ever did in 2000, and there's also a movie that his last Yakuza gangster movie that he did, aside from one that just came out, but this movie called Outrage Coda. He stopped using Joe Hisaishi to score his movies, and they just become like very like grim. Like there's like Outrage Beyond Outrage and Outrage Coda, and without the Hisaishi music, they're just like there's not the romanticism. It's just kind of more just brutal. And yeah, I thought the that and then the movie Brother he did in 2000, like he also has such a very very dim view of America, because like in Hana-bi there's like the Brotherhood, and like in all of his gangster Yakuza movies from the 90s there's like Brotherhood, and it's like even in the midst of all this brutality there's like people trying to make it and romanticism, but like when he goes to America they're just living in like this big empty house and just killing people, like this just big empty base. There's like no, and he's called like the movie's called Brother, and I think it's about like all that. But yeah, the idea of being in like a big empty mall and just being kind of hollowed out, brutal. I could see.
Yeah,
I kind of would have loved to see Takeshi do a zombie movie like that or something. But he could have done a good one.
that's an interesting concept. I feel like I feel like he would handle it well. I have so I love zombie movies, but I feel like it's one of the most mishandled genres of movies. I feel like it could be done so much better. And it's been done well a few times. I feel like especially the third act of Night of the Living Dead is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 2/3 of that movie just feel like a horror movie from the time, and then the last act feels like someone's nightmare. It's like super grim, super surreal. Just it transcends film for the time, and it obviously because it had such a huge impact and it created an entire genre.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just misused. I feel like people get way too caught up on the like, let's kill some zombies, let's get our AR-15s and limited amount of ammo and just shoot zombies and let's show their head explode. I feel like, that's what I heard. That's
what I thought the movie was going to be, to be honest. Like, because even having seen Night of the Living Dead, like the only thing I had only really like kind of heard culturally about this movie, like kind of heard some of the consumerism stuff, but largely I just heard, oh, it's a fun, like you kill a ton of zombies, and it's like there's that, but that's like saying like RoboCop is like they kill about like it's a guy solving crime or something, right? Like yeah. Is there I think I really haven't seen a lot of zombie movies. I think I've seen this one, Night of the Living Dead, 28 Days Later, and I think my favorite one that I know isn't a zombie movie, but it's a zombie movie is Assault on Precinct 13, the Carpenter one. That always felt like just him doing a zombie movie. I feel like I would count it. It's like an honorary zombie movie for me. Yeah. Yeah, but 28 Days Later and to me this Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, those are like the really good ones. There's some other good one, Return of the Living Dead, the John Russo movie. He also worked on Night of the Living Dead, so that's the story behind those two. George Romero and John Russo worked on Night of the Living Dead, and then they sort of broke off from that point. John Russo made Return of the Living Dead, so he took the Living Dead title, and then George Romero made Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and so forth. Gotcha. Two very different takes on zombies. The zombies in like Return of the Living Dead, they talk. That's where the whole infamous like brains thing, that's where that comes from. That comes from his movies. So they're really schlocky and cheesy, but still fun. But I feel like Romero did well with like how he depicted zombies. Yeah. The are there like is the is Day of the Dead good? I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Is that
So,
2004 or something?
no, Land of the Dead is 2004. Day of the Dead
Okay.
is 84, 85, mid 80s.
Okay.
It's if you thought Dawn of the Dead was bleak, Day of the Dead is.
Day of the Dead's really bleak.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Dawn of the Dead takes place, I think, like 3 weeks after. So there's a timeline. If anyone's interested in looking this up, there is like a timeline of when it is. So it's not like all at the same time, but it's like a loose thing. So Night of the Living Dead takes place the night of or 2 days after they show up. Zombies show up, and then Dawn of the Dead, I think, is 3 weeks to a month after they show up. And then it goes like, I think 5 or 6 months from that point, because Fran's like pregnant to like very, very pregnant by the end of the movie. So like maybe 6 months max. And then Day of the Dead, I think, takes place a year after. So everyone in the world's basically dead at this point, except for a research team and a military installment that's meant to like protect them. And it's like a year after. So basically everyone in the world is dead except for this group of people. And it's like a powder keg movie. It's very, very bleak. I
Is that
recommend.
up in the pantheon, like of the zombie, like along with, you said this one, 28 Days, Night of the Living Dead?
I would say, yeah, I think Day of the Dead, and it took a few watches for me, but to me, it's Day of the Dead is, as far as like George Romero's movies, I think Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead are like right next to each other.
Have you seen I Walked with the Zombie? That's another one I just watched recently from the 43 or something.
I've probably seen it, but it was a long time ago, so I don't want to say I've seen it just because I can't
Yeah.
recall anything from it.
We should come over. We can watch it. It just came out like this really nice copy on Criterion. It's one of those Val Lewton RKO 1940s horrors,
I'll
and it
watch
came
it
out in
if,
like a. Go ahead,
yeah.
sorry.
No, sorry. I'll watch it if we can watch what is it? Scene by the Sea, or
Sonatine.
is that what it's called? Is that like I was thinking, because I was looking up Hana-bi, and it said it was called Fireworks in English.
Mm. Yeah. Sonatine. I don't know what sonatine means in English. Yeah, Hanabi means fireworks. He does have a movie, Scene at the Sea. Scene at the Sea is really depressing. I mean, I'm happy to watch Scene at the Sea. Scene at the Sea is one of the movies he did that doesn't star him. So normally he's like starring it, writing, directing, editing it. He also, in Hana-bi, those are his paintings.
Yeah, I looked that up.
Which is fascinating. He because it was like one of the, I think it was his second movie after coming back, like getting in a brutal motorcycle accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his face is paralyzed. He's
Yeah,
a bunch in it. Yeah,
but
yeah,
Sonatine's,
great.
yeah, I'll gladly do a double feature of Sonatine and I Walked with a Zombie, or Scene at the Sea. Scene at the Sea is about like uh like a deaf guy who really wants to be a surfer. He's like a deaf I think he's like a deaf trash guy, like a trash collector, young guy who wants to be a surfer, and it's kind of a nice but extremely sad story of him becoming a surfer. Sonatine is it's like he is a yakuza, like just a gangster, and his whole clan is getting, or guild or whatever, I don't know what the term is, whole unit is getting killed slowly. And it's just like them spending some time at the beach. The sea is definitely, it's a motif in almost every one of his movies, like returning to the ocean.
It's that's one thing I put in my notes. It's just his use of like, it kind of reminds me of the artist Hiroshi Nagai,
I do not know.
the Japanese artist. He did a lot of album covers for like city pop records. So if you ever seen like the whole aesthetic of like the city skyline with like all the purples, and then like the buildings and the airplane, or like he'll do some with like the car and the waves and the big huge clouds. It's, if you've seen a lot of like modern Japanese art like that, it's inspired by him. But
That's cool.
that's what a lot of those scenes, like the ocean scenes in Hana-bi, reminded me of.
Yeah, I just pulled him up on Google. This for sure Kitano coded. It also reminds me of Heat, honestly. Alex Colville. There's a famous painting with have you seen Heat? The De Niro Pacino.
Yeah.
The scene where De Niro's in his house and he's like standing up against his glass window is like referencing an Alex Colville painting that's that I think just Michael Mann loves. Alex Colville, if you like this guy, you would like. I think Alex Colville is a Canadian painter. He doesn't just do ocean stuff, but there's a lot of I don't know. It seems similar just on first look at.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I like the setting too, because I've always liked like the '80s super economic boom side of Japan, but I feel like the '90s like sort of Japan's grunge era, where everything was after the big crash, where everything kind of felt, because like a lot of the movie, especially starting out, it's weird because the movie felt more grim when the situation was less dire, and the more dire the situation gets for him, the more beautiful the movie is. At the end of the movie, he's gonna get arrested. His wife's about to die, and we don't know at the time, but he's gonna like shoot him and her. But I'm like, man, this is a super beautiful, heartfelt scene, especially with like the girl flying the kite. I was like, man, this feels good. Because I was thinking through it afterwards. I was like, I feel like societally, you're supposed to look at this and say like, he shouldn't have done that. Because at first, when I heard the gunshots, like it just shows the thing, and I'm like, it's gonna end here, and it's implied that he shoots her and himself. But then you hear the gunshots, and you're like, well, I'm glad that there is that finality to it. But I'm like, what's the other alternative? He goes to prison.
Yeah.
And probably gets killed by Yakuza thugs when he's in there.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, and then his wife dies of leukemia while he's not even near her. Or they both die here when they're like as happy as they're going to be.
Well, that thing you were saying about like so the people I compare him to, like when I try to describe him, it's like I say he's a mixture of like Adam Sandler. Like I think Adam Sandler could have done, one of my dream movies to do would be like remake this with Adam Sandler. I think because I just love him so much.
Honestly, you could do it.
Yeah. Adam Sandler and Sam Peckinpah, and like Sam Peckinpah, I don't know how many Peckinpah movies, but like I've started noticing like Takeshi Kitano's favorite movie is Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, which is a Sam Peckinpah movie. And like Peckinpah, have you seen that one? Or like Bow to Cable Hogue? Or if you really like this movie, same thing. Like you'll love Peckinpah. But his movies are like also, to me, like a combination of like the very, very tragic and the romantic, like finding beauty in like the most awful of circumstances. It's like that poetry in it. And I think I forgot where I was going with this, but I'm gonna have to edit out all the silence. But there's something about like it's both an argument for suicide and against suicide, because like he's very much saying like his friend should not kill himself. Like his cop buddy, it's like, you don't kill yourself. Like you have so much to live for. But me, no, my wife's dying, my daughter died. There's just like this is like I just thought like that a movie to successfully argue like, okay, these are the circumstances when it is actually probably okay to kill yourself. Like, wife's dying, daughter died. It's interesting. Go back to what you said about the grunge era of Japan. There was a Yakuza movie. I can't remember who did it, but the guy got killed for making it because it like portrayed the Yakuza like very like bumbling and like as kind of like idiots and fools in the 90s. The other movie I would say, if did you grow up in East Tennessee? Like, are you from
partially? Yeah. I've spent a lot of years here. Yeah, between here and like the Chicago area. So
gotcha. Yeah, middle and high school I went to rural high school here, and there's this movie Kids Return that Takeshi did that is like the closest thing besides Napoleon Dynamite to the experience I felt of like going to East Tennessee like high school. And it's like it's the same thing. It's just about some shitty public school in Japan, and it's like just very grungy, and it's like it's a movie about a shitty high school and a group of idiots graduating from high school who are just kind of like aimless, like directionless whatevers, and them just failing at life. It's really good. But yeah, also love that to your early point, it's also like the thing about the mundane and that just generally being a sign of a good movie, I feel. Do you typically like a lot of stuff where it's like very mundane, like the less like Dramatic. I don't know what the opposite of that word is.
That's yeah. So I like movies less. Movies that are like, I can enjoy an action movie on occasion, but I can't. Like, there's some people, and I don't know if they do it ironically, but they'll put like movies like Speed at the top of their list, or even like they'll say like
You're calling me out because I just told you Heat was at the top of my list.
well, no, Heat's really really well made. There's a lot of been through why Heat's like a good movie.
I am. You can't see the other side of me though, but I have a flag of Twister above in my office. And that's the guy who directed that.
Twister's good. Listen,
Twister's
I saw
good.
Twisters. Did you see Twisters?
I did not. I should have.
So I saw it, and a lot of other people were like, "It kind of sucked," but I was like, "No, man, it is what it is." If this movie came out in the late '90s, people would go nuts for it.
The other guy,
I liked it. 4 out of 5.
I do want to watch it. I meant to go see it in 4DX, but I just kept forgetting about it. I wanted to see it in like I haven't seen a movie where you, like in the rocking like crazy seats. Hopefully it gets released. But the guy who did Twister, Bont, he directed that and Speed. I think that's it as far as movies, which a fascinating career. He was the cinematographer on Die Hard and a bunch of other, like, he's a great cinematographer. He's like one of my favorites. But he also was notable for having his head almost ripped off by a tiger on the movie Roar, which I need to watch, in 1980. That's like allegedly the most dangerous movie ever made. I think it was like, I can't remember which actress it was. It was like one of the Hitchcock ladies, like kind of retired from acting and became like this big tiger animal rights sanctuary person. And she wanted to film a movie, and so she spent a bunch of years making this movie called Roar with like a bunch of tigers and lions, and he was a cinematographer on it, and like 38 people just got mauled on the movie. I have a copy of it. I just haven't watched it yet, but yeah, he had to get like 250 stitches in his scalp, and then he went on to direct Twister and Speed. So I don't know if one led to the other, but maybe.
You know how sometimes people get head injuries and then they'll wake up and speak a different language?
Yeah.
Maybe Tiger just knocked his head and he started making good movies.
I think he went back to the movie too. I think like even with that, he's like, I'll still like, which that's what a pro. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you saying? So like when you're saying the Mundane, like some people put like Speed at their top, but you don't necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of what. So I feel like a movie, the best thing a movie can be is like the really just like a really distilled idea, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a really good movie is just going to be like someone's imagination, really. So like if the closer it can relate to your own imagination, I feel like the more you're going to like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like movies like Hana-bi sort of work the way that my imagination works. Like In Bruges works the way my imagination works. The way it's sort of like meandering a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then the interjections of things. I feel like that to me, and I feel like it should do that for a lot of people, but I don't know if everyone thinks the same. But I feel like a lot of us do, whatever. But yeah, I feel like with those mundane things, it's not hard to have a good grasp on action because it's used to describing a thing, and the bigger budget you have, the easier it is. You can say like a car is driving on the side of a building, and then you can do that if you have the budget. It's way harder to make things that are mundane interesting.
Yeah, that's a great
It's way
point.
harder to tell a good story. It's saying like he walks into the hospital lobby and then he goes up the stairs, and make that something that you want to watch.
Yeah.
To me, that's way more impressive, and it's way more of a testament to like the prowess, I guess, of somebody.
Yeah. I do love, he generally, I mean, yeah, I think you're going to love the rest of his movies. In this one, I really like, the scenes where he's, like when he's at the scrapyard, and like, he doesn't, like, after he talks to the guy, I love that scene. I think that guy's in a bunch of his movies, The Junkyard.
I love that guy. I feel like that guy was fantastic.
I want to say, he has like a bunch of characters, that are in his movies, and I think that guy's in. I want to say he's the lead in Ryuzo and the Seven Henchmen. I could be thinking of someone else. But I know he's for sure in Sonatine. I think he gets blown apart in an elevator. But yeah, I love that scene. Like they, first of all, just him saying like, "Oh, it's like you want to rob a bank? I think that's a great idea. Like that sounds great. Just you can have it." And then also when he just like he makes sure like he lets him go over and like smack the head of the other worker, right? And just saying like, do something, you glue sniffing bum or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was. It's one of the things in my notes. I was like, "There's a lot of head smacks in this movie."
Yeah. Welcome back after the technical difficulties. Was there did the movie surprise you in any way, like for better or for worse? Like Hana-bi? Like is there anything like particularly surprising about it?
I think just there's a lot of the scenes with his wife and just the tenderness of the movie. I think just after the first like 20, 30 minutes of the movie, I thought it was just going to be like the movie falling down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. To me, it was like the scene where he's like, I wrote it down. Like the puzzle scene is really, really sweet. Just like the first scene where he comes down and sits with his wife, because before that, you only have one scene of him with his wife, and he's just sort of quietly sitting there. And that's why Horibe, his partner, Horibe. Well, that's why when he's getting shot, he's sort of just sitting with his wife.
Yeah.
And after that happens, it sort of. The next time you see him with his wife, he's doing that the puzzle with her, and he brings the sweet. And she takes the cream horn and then gives him the raspberry. I was like, that's a really sweet scene. And then every scene that he had with her from then on, I was like, really, it's just heartfelt, and it made the whole movie feel like less I guess violent and bleak.
Did you cry at the end? First time I cried a little. And like I was just devastated for like days, and then second time I watched it, I was just sobbing. I was just destroyed. This time I was able to like kind of keep it in a little bit, but it just killed me, the ending.
Yeah, it definitely. I don't think I cried. But I definitely wanted to. But my girlfriend was next to me, and I was like, "You can't cry." No.
Oh, did she like it? Did she watch it with you?
I don't. I think that she sort of missed the first half of it because he was doing stuff. But
Gotcha.
yeah, and then plus with it being subtitles and stuff, you really have to. And even then, like it's sort of a hard movie to follow. Like you have to really pay attention to it because of like the time jump that's just inadvertent, and then like the flashbacks, the way that they happen. It's a bit hard to follow, so I don't blame her for not really keeping track of it. But I remember it being like I was deeply affected by it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like it definitely, I felt really moved by it for sure.
Yeah, the ending too. It like being hard to follow. Like I didn't honestly think it was like so. I'd like pieced it together on the first thing, and then but then like on the second watch, and then I think this was like my third or fourth, fifth. Well, I'd have watched a whole bunch of clips from it over and over and listened to the soundtrack like endlessly, but I didn't realize like how at the end the I always like kind of had perceived the ending as like they're like obviously the girl's not there and they're just sort of flashing back, but like realizing that it's also was like a season change, like it goes from like winter to summer or spring or whatever. And I just had thought like once that finally like it internalized on me on like the first or second watch or whatever, but like oh god, they just recreated this entire like, and that's honestly like with the zombie thing too, I thought like was interesting comparing with Dawn of the Dead. It's like all the people in Dawn of the Dead sort of knew is like go to this one, like they just knew how to like go to the shopping mall and they're just almost like retracing their steps. But in Hana-bi they're retracing like it seems like a happy vacation they had with their daughter, like wearing the same clothes, going to the same places, and then killing themselves in like a particularly happy spot, which is just horrific.
Yeah, you saying that just sort of made me put it together. It's the kind of like opposite ends of it. Like in Hanabi, the thing happens and then they go on a journey, and then it's them sort of dealing with the aftermath of the initial thing. Like the real shooting off point of the movie is his friend getting shot and paralyzed. And then I don't know what happens with Nishi. I feel like he's a very it's kind of getting wobbly on my description here, but he is a very reactive character, and it sounds weird watching the movie because he seems like a really cold character. But my impression was that he does feel a lot of the things that are happening. Like he's a deep, like him getting the thing for Hanabi, and then him taking his wife out. You see more of his tenderness. Even him apologizing to the Yakuza guy that he stabbed.
Yeah,
he's like a deeply reactive and feeling character.
Yeah,
no, he seems
that's where the Sandler comparisons come in for me, because that's the Adam Sandler thing of a guy's inability to express his thoughts and emotions comes out through violence, or just these big explosions like Waterboy, Happy Gilmore, Punch Drunk Love. Yeah, that's why I'd love to see the Sandman do a remake or a version of this. But
he still has time. I mean,
yeah,
Takeshi was this pretty old guy whenever he made that.
Yeah, he's very inspiring. Because I think he didn't start making movies till he was 40. I mean, he was already the most popular comedian in Japan, I think, by the time he started doing it.
Yeah, sorry, just to finish the point I started.
Sure.
So in Hana-bi, the thing happens, and then there's a journey, and then in Dawn of the Dead, it's like a journey to the thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
The big things that happen near the end of the movie, almost on the same time scale that Hana-bi happens in reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I was really shocked at how much they ended up connecting like that. And just being I don't know, similar themes and similar vibes, honestly, more than anything. Just I think as you watch Brother, I think Brother, I would like to watch that one again, and I think that'll probably even feel more like it, because it just has a very the pacing of it just seems maybe because it's a slow zombie movie, and a lot of slow, and then it's sudden things that happen. That seems to be how his movies go too, is that they're just kind of concerned with the slow and the mundane, and then things happen. What do you think us both liking Hana-bi so much says about us? What do you think it says about me or you? Does it say anything? Do you feel like you know me better for having watched this, or
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I don't know. I don't want to speak because there's a lot of people that like the movie, probably not enough in my opinion, but there's a lot of people that like the movie, and I feel like I don't know. It's definitely just a sign of you've got some melancholy there, but it's not it's not a sadness that you're really uncomfortable with. It's one that's at least it's a cozy one.
Yeah,
it's
maybe it's just one that I can't express, and it's going to come out in violence.
Hey, there you go. If you got some chopsticks and a guy with too many eyes in his head, just
I have some drumsticks. I can just.
There you go. But you get a big guy with really big eyes. You need more than a chopstick.
Yeah, that's fair. I think. I think the kind of the same. I would say for the same answer on Dawn of the Dead, it's a little. It's definitely a screw loose in you. If that's someone's favorite movie, there's definitely just a little it's and I mean that at all respectfully, but it's not a for for some there's there's a little bit it's also a little bit angry, I would say. That's there's I felt kind of a seething rage underneath that movie, and to the point about comparing about the both of them being the people in Dawn of the Dead. I'm reminded this can be a very weird comparison, but in Dawn of the Dead, the zombies going back to the consumer, being consumers, and that's all they know. It's that's almost a very angry, rotten indictment, where it's Kitano and his wife doing it well, it's a happy vacation with their daughter and like the happy moments, and it's like a really like it's like a really, to your point, it's like a very romantic, like it's a rom-com in a way, in a weird way, but it's like a nice little, it's like, it's definitely a romance. But I was thinking, when the U.S. droned that Iranian general who was like Soleimani or whatever, who was like a hero in Iran like a couple years ago, they said like one of the Iranian, like, I can't remember who said it, but they're like we can't even retaliate on this because like Americans don't have any heroes. It's like they just like consume, and they just buy stuff. It's like, who are we gonna kill, Bugs Bunny or like, you know, the guy from Halo or something? It's like, how can we, like, there's no counter, like there's no concept of a hero in America. And I feel like that, like in Dawn of the Dead, like that was kind of like the simmering rage underneath it all. It's just like that, almost not of like, they try to make it good, but it's like I guess the people, they're like the, you know, the protagonists or whatever in the mall, but like everyone's just still in this mall, just like enjoying it to various degrees. And it's like, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just an indictment on us of like, yeah, we just want to consume things and shoot each other, and there's just like an anger there that I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, because he could have wrote like really, you know, I guess moral stalwart sort of characters. He could have written the people that we could strive to become, but he wrote people that are like us, and or maybe in his view like us, but like a lot of them, they like, with all that was happening, the things they wanted to do once they got the mall were really just bland, superficial nonsense.
Yeah.
And then
you think like today they would have like had like a meme coin or something?
Yeah.
Sorry, they get bored with it.
Yeah, they just get like, there's like the whole part of the end of the movie near like whenever the TV broadcasts stop coming through, is that they're over it already.
Yeah,
like they're living in like the worst, like one of the worst timelines you could have. They survived it. They're living in more comfort than anyone else, I would say, except for other people that maybe took over malls. And then they're bored with it.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, they're just like, they're whatever. And then they're just ready to shoot themselves when they lose it.
Again, very American. They're just like, it's like,
yeah. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like him being from Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense, because that seems to be the Pittsburgh vibe. It's working fast. It's like, I don't have time to fucking think about, you know, these big ideas. I've got to just get to work, you know.
Shout out to all of our Pittsburgh listeners.
Yeah. I've got a lot of people in Pittsburgh. You know, do you
really?
You're not watching this, and you definitely didn't get this far, but shout out.
I went to Pittsburgh last year to see a hockey game. My brother's a big Penguins fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a interesting city.
I like it. It's real. I like things that are a little bit grimy and a little bit working fast. I don't like the roads, but like everything else about it, it's kind of.
I like coming out of that tunnel and then you just see the city.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great. Yeah, I'd be curious. Like today, I'd be curious if they're like, you know, because it feels like, you know, living in America, it's like it's never enough. I thought that was interesting. It was like one of the things actually in my notes, like the portrayal of the zombies, like they're just non-threatening in any one like any single zombie is like relatively non-threatening. Like I feel like most people could sort of take one out with just like a gun or something. It's like they move so slow, but
they're slow and goofy. Yeah,
they're slow and goofy, but they're just endless and they just don't stop. And it's like I kind of wonder, like everything is becoming so much more like, I don't know, hyper capitalized. Like we're under hyper, like it's just, there's just more and more. Like I just read today, like the president of Argentina or something like tweeted about some meme coin and then used it to like get a couple $1 million and then tanked it or whatever. It's like, that's the president of a country is like doing meme coin stuff. It's like, where does this like, where are you doing a pump and dump? It's like, where does this end? Like, what is like, I'd be curious, like if they did this movie today, would it be like, I don't know, would like the people like just be trying to shill meme coins to the zombies? Would it just be over? Like, would we get bored in like 24 hours? It'd be like we don't even really have malls anymore, but yeah, I don't know.
I feel like Romero's career sort of I mean, he was a big social commentary guy, but to get even more meta, I feel like his career was social commentary because
Yeah.
he showed up in like the late '60s during like the big cultural revolution, and then he made a big splash with what he was wanting to say about people, and then in Dawn of the Dead, obviously he made a big impact with his social commentary, and people liked him, and he had more of a career. He went on talk shows and stuff, and then with Day of the Dead, I feel like to me I think it was the biggest budget movie he'd done at that point, and it was it was a big deal, and it was like it's still sort of universally regarded as like one of the best zombie movies. A lot of zombie fans will cite it as their favorite. But then, like with Land of the Dead, came out in 2004. It was a little bit less. It was like post 9/11. Well, the 2004 Dawn of the Dead movie might be the one. The Land of the Dead 2004, 2005. But it was like right after 9/11 and right after like Bush Jr. Did his whole thing, and I don't think people wanted social commentary about America.
Yeah.
I think they were very pro-American then. And then the last movie, he had made a couple more movies, and they didn't really connect with an audience just because, like, in a way, it proves him right about what he was saying before. People just weren't.
Yeah, 2001 to like after 9/11 to like a couple years after that was not a great time to be making like anti or like skeptical of American type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting how much that changed. I mean, I don't know how. Are you? So I'm 34. Are you around? Like, do you remember 9/11 happening and all?
Yeah.
32. Yeah. It's funny because we're talking, as after politics, like Trump got into, like, I read something also too about like them thinking like I think it was Mike Lee, the Utah senator, or something, said like, oh, we don't need the TSA, and like he's like, we don't need the TSA anymore. Like airlines can do it, or like whoever else can do it. And I was like, I'm just trying to think of when you said like, yeah, at that point they weren't necessarily like wanting a lot of social commentary. I'm trying to describe not even like 20 years later to someone in like 2001 or 2002 or 4. I guess like a little over 20 years later, them saying like, yeah, all the stuff you're doing now, they're just going to say, get rid of it. Like we don't need the TSA. Like it's actually going to take us about 20, 25 years to forget. And like, not that the TSA is like great or anything, but yeah, I could see for Romero this being a difficult time to in 04 to launch it. That type of stuff.
And like on paper, it should have been a good movie. It had like a good budget. It had Simon Baker, who he's kind of a nobody now, but at the time he was just hot off the heels of The Devil Wears Prada, and
it's a great movie.
Oh yeah,
love that movie.
Real good. And then
I unironically like that movie.
John Leguizamo was also in that movie.
Nice.
Dennis Hopper, I believe, the
really
Easy Rider guy, right?
Yeah.
He was also in the movie, and I think that's really like the main people in it. But I was like, it should have been sort of a success. It's still one of the better zombie movies I feel like they're out there, but at the time it just felt like it just didn't connect with people, and it didn't connect with me as much. But I don't know what that is, but like. The next two movies, I thought, Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, I feel like should have connected, and they just didn't because people didn't. I mean, it's not that people just wouldn't pay attention to that sort of thing anymore.
Yeah.
And he uses a lot of, like, in Diary of the Dead, he uses a lot of, like, long shots and stuff, and it's like, it's a movie sort of talking about, like, modern attention spans and, like, the how to get people to care about things, and ironically enough, no one cared about the movie. So maybe his myopic view was more accurate than we wanted it to be. At least that's how I feel, yeah.
I'd like to watch those for sure. We could definitely do a movie night with like Sonatine and one of those. That'd be a lot of fun. I also have the other versions in this box set. It comes with I'd like to see the Argento one and I guess the theatrical one.
Mm-hmm. Theatrical's so good.
Do like that one.
Yeah.
The what was I going to say? Oh, I said I was going to tell a Night of the Living Dead story because when you reminded me about like just people like getting it or not liking it or getting that. So I took a couple of film classes at my first college that I got kicked out in Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. And the there was a kicked out of, failed out of, whatever you want to say. Like the one of the classes we watched Night of the Living Dead, and it was taught by this professor who was like I think she was a media studies professor. I loved her. She like did a lot of stuff on like the Resident Evil movies. I always remember like she like had academic articles about like the Mila Jovovich Resident Evil ones about like, and they were interesting to read. And I think we watched Apocalypse for that class as well, and like Red River and a couple other things. It was a great class. But we watched it. This was like one of the drove me insane when I watched Night of the Living Dead the first time, because the ending happened, and again, spoiler alert, but it's a 50-year-old movie. It was with this was like I've talked about it on my channel a little bit, but like I got really alienated at that school because like just growing up in rural East Tennessee, like and coming from like a very poor, weird high school, and then like going to like that school with a bunch of like all my classmates just seemingly had tons of money. It was like a small liberal arts school. It was just kind of just felt very alienated. But the when we watched that, no one else in the class, like everyone was like shocked at the ending when they, you know, the hero who's a black dude, you know, opens the door and he just immediately gets shot by the cops. And this was 2000, probably 2009. We watched it, and everyone was like gasped, like they were like shocked, and they're like, that would just never happen. Like that was the prevailing sentiment of the class. Is just like that. I just remember just like I'm going insane here. I was like, because they're all like, that wouldn't happen, and like they're like, why did that happen? That's such a bad ending. Like why did that? Why did they just shoot him when they just saw him initially? And I was just like, have you all met like it? Like, am I living in a different world, like where that just isn't totally obvious? Why a bunch of cops would just and like deputized people would just shoot a black dude that they saw coming out of the house?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I remember the teacher saying, or the professor saying, like that. I don't even know if he meant that, right? But like, I just remember, I don't know. It was so weird to me that like it's my only connection with this franchise. Just it's been burned into my head of like that was like it was like the moment where I was like, I should probably not be at the school. Like there's like I don't know. There's just like something
Yeah,
something weird here.
a lot of my
Yeah,
favorite movies have like ambiguous or depressing endings. And is that
for
an
sure.
indictment on me? Maybe. Okay.
You know,
But
I love them too. You know, most of my favorite movies have very sad endings, I think. You know, the other movie this list go on, so it went on like the like movies concerned with the rotten influence of America. It also went on the movies that feels like work list. Like this felt like the experience of having a job in in 21st century America. Uh just like working and like just the purgatory, and just it like the little routines that they had to do just was just like, you know, especially even now, like, you know, post election when, you know, everything is like this government agency is getting canceled. This is like, it doesn't seem like there's any type of rules or whatever else. Like it just feels like this, it just feels like working in America. It's just like, okay, well, I'm doing my little mall, but you know, there's a million of these like slow moving zombies just trying to butt in on this like this little tiny corner. Did you how do you do you feel that, or
I
I don't know
mean,
what your experience of working
yeah,
is,
my
but
job especially, there's like a glass case around me and people come up to it. And there's been a ton of times where I'm like, man,
are you an exhibit at the zoo?
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Just the making pizzas and David Attenborough's talking over my ear about the feeding habits of these people. But yeah, a lot of the times, yeah, it just feels like, I don't know, like the more time I spend around the general public, the more I'm like, man, these people can't, they are, I see what Romero was cooking. I smell what Romero was cooking a little bit.
Yeah,
Like
it just
he
feels like
definitely more cynical than I am at this stage of my life, but I can definitely understand what he's saying with his view of people, and then like what zombies represent is just the greater society. Like he
yeah.
uses characters to portray like certain aspects, and he uses the backdrop, the zombies, to portray everything else. But it's all his lens on the world
Hmm.
in its own way.
What? But even with that, there is like romanticism and love there too, which I thought like pairs with it. Like the scene at near the beginning where they go into the basement of the one and like the people are sort of keeping their loved ones in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, why haven't you killed these people? It's like, well, that was my husband, or like that's my brother. Like there's like a real sensitivity, and like it's like, at least especially at the start, he does like a very good job of, I thought, like portraying the I don't know, the dilemma that the people are going through. And like I was glad it wasn't just immediately everyone was just like, oh, I'm gonna shoot these things. Like he did try and find a little bit of the love and a little bit of the romance in that, even in like a very cynical movie.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always liked about that movie is it takes time to sort of give you the backdrop of the world at the time. Like with the news station, you sort of see like the media side of it, of things going to shit on their end. But then, yeah, you get to see the apartment building part of it, and the talk with the priest, especially, and even the way that Woody, the guy that goes nuts and starts shooting people with a shotgun.
Oh, what is that fella's name?
I think it's Wooly. I think that he completely loses his shit and starts shooting people. But yeah, even just the way that like he's like an authority figure that is losing his sense of authority to a higher authority, which is like the dead in this setting, and the way that he's not handling it well. Like he obviously uses it as an excuse to express his own hate, but it still drives me crazy not being really feeling like he's the one in charge, you know?
Yeah.
It's great. I feel like it's one of those movies, and I feel like both of these movies are the sort of the movies where most of it is intentional. Most of it, even the parts that don't feel intentional, that feel like slogging or whatever, there's a reason that they do all the things. Like just to jump right over back to Hana-bi, the scene where Horibe is looking at the different flowers, and then it's showing the different paintings, using those things as like an inspiration. And then he gets to some kind of orchid. I don't remember, like a blood orchid or something, the orange one. And he can't think of anything. And then he gets like interrupted in the middle of that. I was like, there's probably a lot of people that watch that and be like, you know, they would just think like they wouldn't, I guess, process immediately what it's supposed to mean. So like, I don't know if that character actually painted any of those paintings. I think that's just him, because it showed his first painting and it wasn't very good. It was like him and his daughter and wife, I believe, at the beach.
The dot one?
No, there's the one he did before that.
Oh, I see.
Sort of like saying, a really basic, almost looked like a child's painting. And then it shows him looking at those paintings. And I feel like was him getting his inspiration.
Gotcha. And
I believe he got that inspiration at the spot he was shot. I don't know if.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, back there, and then he got his inspiration.
Yeah, I want to get the cat, the blue and black cat. Probably, I don't have any tattoos, but if I get a tattoo, that'll probably be the first one if I can find someone to.
I would definitely
cat with the flower.
I would definitely get one of his paintings and tattoo. I like the one that was in the backdrop of. I think it was whenever he was like picking something up from like a diner or something, but there was one. It was like someone tied up, and then someone with like a pinata bat. Joint person was tied up. Oh, yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'd probably get that somewhere.
If you like his paintings, he did a whole movie. It's one of his saddest movies, called, and that's saying something, called Achilles and the Tortoise. That's part of his like surrealist trilogy that he did, where he's a painter, and there's like 1,000 of his paintings in there. But insanely sad movie though, about him sort of like, it's like a parable of him looking for artistic recognition with critics and not getting it, and thinking like, well, maybe I should have just like hung out with my wife more, and now I kind of have this wasted life. So real upbeat one. But if you like his paintings, and I love his paintings.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I like that his character was a loving husband in this.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed about it is that he was like, I felt like he was a very good husband, at least in that part. I don't know how he was the rest of the time. And I like that this movie felt like it feels like it's like it's an aftermath movie.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily an aftermath of like the event, like the shooting, and then his counteraction to the shooting. I feel like it's just the aftermath of like these characters' lives, like these detectives' lives. I feel like you could make movies maybe about what happened before that point with this partnership, but they
Yeah.
chose to make it like, okay, what happens after they're cops?
Yeah.
Like what effect does their violence and their decisions have on, you know, how their stories end? Because one guy, splashes the thing on the canvas, just says suicide, and the other guy actually kills himself.
Yeah. I think I think I interpret that as like a rejection and like I'm gonna do it. Like one guy's saying like he's one of the movies I always compare this to as well as Lethal Weapon, which I love. Lethal Weapon, one of my all time favorites, and it's like because in that movie it's like Riggs, Danny Glover is like saving Mel Gibson from suicide because like Mel Gibson he's like he lost his wife and he's like I should kill myself and that's all he has, but Riggs kind of like shows him a way. That's like a kind of shows him a way back. This movie to me almost feels like it's like half Lethal Weapon but also half like sort of Justifiable. Like this is it's like a very loving, it's the most loving thing he can do for his wife is to kill both of them, I guess. And
no, it's the most hopeful ending that story could have.
Yeah.
And with Dawn of the Dead, I feel like that's the most hopeful ending that story could have.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the story elements would make more sense if they went ahead and killed themselves as originally intended, but
because you wonder where she's going at the end with like the helicopter. Like where is like I kind of wonder like what's the plan after that? Like
the last lines is how much roughly that's like how much fuel do we have, and it's like not much, and he's just like okay. There's like sort of like a resignation at the end of it, or the rest of the movie is like denial and escapism and denial and escapism alternating. The ending is very much like, all right, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Do you what's the first movie you remember loving as like big Tyler? Like, do you remember the first thing that you ever out of left field question, but first thing like teenager adult?
Yeah. So there's probably a couple. I remember watching it was actually I think it was like the first night I'd smoked weed before this point, but I'd never gotten like out of my mind high. Mm-hmm. And then one of the first movies I watched by myself, just like curl up in a blanket, and I watched American History X.
Nice.
I just remember like just visually, I mean the themes of that movie are what they are, but like visually I was like that it was one of the best movies I ever watched. But after I'd say after
great sound design in that movie. I can't that stuff where the teeth are on the obviously like the teeth are on the concrete, like the little chatter. It's so horrible to listen to.
Yeah, that's the sound of his teeth. That I can't. Yeah, it's very bad. It makes my ears hurt. But maybe after that, I would say What Dreams May Come, the Robin Williams movie.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's. I mean, it gets middling reviews, I guess, but I feel like the first act of that movie, to this day, every time I watch it, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah,
I
love '90s movies, so that looks right up my alley.
Yeah, it's very good. Another good movie of his, just to go on a tiny little elbow of Robin Williams, The World According to Garth.
I haven't seen that either.
Man, it's a very passed over movie, I feel, but I feel like it's his version of Forrest Gump, and it sort of combines like younger Robin Williams with his like whimsy and hopefulness with like the later Robin Williams of him picking really depressing, realistic stories to tell. I feel like this is like the first sort of hints that he has that sort of gravitas, I guess, to tell those more depressing stories. But it's not a depressing movie.
He's another one that probably could have played in Hana-bi. Like he's like if you would have like because he was such a like a force and like it would have been interesting to see him restrained and as quiet and like as almost nonverbal and like seeing all the stuff that's sort of bubbling up like on the surface.
Yeah,
that's I hadn't
if
thought
it's
about that.
1 hour
till you said
photo,
that,
he would do it great. Detective Nietzsche.
I haven't seen that either. That's been on my list for years. That was one of those ones. I think it came out when I was like 12 or 13. I was like, this is gonna scare me too bad.
No, yeah,
It's too creepy.
he plays like broody and creeping really well. And it's not, but even it's bad to compare Nishi to for the character in 1 hour photo. For the people who've seen 1 hour photo, I don't think Nishi is anything like that. But yeah, he could do it. But I think Sandler is a good instinct. I feel like for that.
Yeah,
character. I feel like
probably most comedians. I think there's like just the explosion of it, like,
okay,
like the keeping it in, and then yeah, Takeshi's Castle. I don't. Did you watch
yes,
MXC?
most extreme elimination challenge.
Yeah.
Well, I put that together in my head before I looked it up, and I was like, where have I seen this guy? This guy's really familiar, and it's like maybe I've had like enough interest in like this time period in Japan to just see his face, but I'm like, no, that's Vic Romano. That's the co-host on MXC. Yeah, I put it together. And I was like, what's up with his face? And that's when I looked it up and saw about the act.
What's interesting, I think this is the movie that he got like just the barest amount of recognition in Japan for his like films, because like he was in the movie Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. I think was his first movie role, which is a great movie with David Bowie and Ryuichi Sakamoto, directed by Nagisa Oshima. Fantastic movie. It's like kind of a gay prisoner of war love story in World War II, and he plays like Kitano plays like this really abusive, awful guard, like prison guard, and people kept laughing when he came on because he's just known as like that big of a comedian. So like he had a big struggle. Like I think Takeshi's Castle when it came out was like 30 or 40% ratings. Like it was like the biggest show in Japan from what I remember. I could be totally wrong, but like it was like the biggest show. He's like the biggest comedian in Japan, I think, in the 80s and 90s. And still, I think he won the Venice Film Festival, like the Golden Lion, I think it is, for Hana-bi. And that was like the first time, even though it's like 7 or 8 movies into his career directing, that like he got sort of any critical recognition locally in Japan, which is wild to me because he's my favorite. And yeah, I think he's still just, I think, way more known as a comedian and for Takeshi's Castle than he is as like this really sad filmmaker. Which is crazy.
Yeah, I can't really think of a parallel to him. I guess Robin Williams would be the closest, but I hope.
Yeah. I don't know. It'd be like if maybe this is gonna be a weird, like, I don't know, maybe if Jerry Seinfeld like made a bunch of dramatic movies and then like, but we didn't like them over here, but that they were really big in Europe or Japan or wherever. I'm trying to think of Seinfeld doing a dramatic role and I can't.
Yeah, I don't think that he's a weird guy. I feel like he's like the yeah, that's an understatement. But I feel like he's on like so there's a side of like funny / neurotic that can be like good, if not like morally good, then like at least productive to to making something you want to see. But I feel like Seinfeld's on like the bad side of that, where he's like neurotic to the point where like it makes him annoying and like it's a put off.
You don't like Seinfeld?
I like the show.
Yeah.
I like Larry David. Seinfeld
Yeah.
himself, I'm not really big on. I
watched the Pop-Tart movie last year when I was doing laundry, and I was like, whatever. I'm upset in general that we're making Pop-Tart movies, but
is that like a B movie, but he plays a Pop-Tart?
It's like I haven't seen B movie. I've only ever seen the memes. Actually, I have seen B movie, but only in those like videos on YouTube. It's like the B movie, but it gets sped up every time they say the word B, and it's like 2 minutes.
Oh
long.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've seen the B movie.
That's the definitive cut of B movie.
Yeah, I've heard
Absolutely.
that. No, he's not a Pop-Tart. He's like the guy who invented Pop-Tarts in the movie, and it's not good, but it's like, I was folding laundry, so I was like, whatever. Yeah, I will never watch it again. I do like
Room
Seinfeld.
temperature toaster strudel.
That's it's pretty much that. It is probably the biggest waste of like talent, like considering all the people that are in that movie, like John Hamm's in the movie, Amy Schumer's in the movie, like, not that, like, whatever people feel about her. Who else is in this fucking movie? Pop-Tart movie. I remember just being really upset that, like, there are so many people. Jim Gaffigan, Hugh Grant. I like Hugh Grant. Just Peter Dinklage, Christian Slater, Bill Burr, Thomas Lennon, Bobby Moynihan, Kyle Mooney, Dean Norris, Sebastian Maniscalco, Beck Bennett, Cedric the Entertainer, Fred Armisen, John Slattery.
Is it a comedy?
It is, yeah. It's a not good comedy about like the making of Pop-Tart, and it's like kind of a spoof of like the space race and other, like, it's like a self-knowing like spoof of like other like The Founder, all these movies that, like, I don't know, they're like, I call them like meeting movies, because like Ford versus Ferrari and The Founder and like all these movies about you have to have a really good meeting. That's a separate conversation. I don't know. This is just gonna totally, that drives me crazy, and it also makes me really. This is my, if I, please don't steal this if you're listening. Go ahead and steal it, because who knows if I'll ever get to write it. But like, what was I gonna say? Oh, meeting movies. Like, yeah, there's something. This is gonna be my anti-American movie, but it's more my anti-American movie. American movie. There seems to be like when we do like a movie now, like The Founder. Have you seen The Founder, like the McDonald's one, or the Ford versus Ferrari?
I've seen Ford versus The Founder, the one with
Michael Keaton.
Keaton? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they're fine, but it's like, it seems like our imagination, maybe it's because me included, like almost everyone has office jobs now. It seems like the way like these like even what's the Martian, like, which I guess is kind of like Apollo 13 or whatever, but like it just seems that all these movies, there's a ton of movies like in the genre of just like, I need to have a really good work meeting. And it's like, that's what we're aspiring to. It's like in Ford versus Ferrari, I feel like if that came out 30 years ago, it probably never would have, like, you never would have had a movie that had like so much stuff going on in the boardroom. It would have been like, why are we paying attention to these losers at all? It's like, let's see the races. Let's see like the people who are actually driving it. Let's see the people who are building it. But now it's like all we can aspire to as like Americans and in capitalism and the thing is just, well, let's have a really good like, let's portray people. It's like, if I could only have this really good meeting at work, if I could only like just say the right things and get my project done and like clear out all the obstacles, then that's how it is. And that's just like a really, I don't know, thing to aspire to. That's also what drove me crazy about the Pop-Tart movie, is like, that's the area of satire that I think I would like to see, is like, why are we even having meetings about people who are like marketing executives in the first place, as opposed to like, I don't know, anything else. Like, yeah.
I feel like now we just sort of relate to the crabs that are almost out of the bucket. We used to want to hear the stories about other Americans that were struggling, but I feel like there's so many people struggling now that they don't want to hear anymore.
That's an awful way to put it, I think. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, we just want to hear about people like who are moderately successful at work.
Man, that's why Wolf of Wall Street was so big. It's not like you couldn't take the same thing away from Wolf of Wall Street that you could like most any movie, like most any Pixar movie. They don't really get punished for what they do. It's just a movie about excess and hedonism and I thought it was less successful.
I mean, that maybe it's because I dislike those people more than probably mafia people like Wall Street guys, but like, I thought he was trying to do the same thing as like Goodfellas. It's like, this is how people get seduced by this lifestyle, right? Of like, this is the attraction of it, and we'll show these. But like, I just can't stand spending time with those people. Just like,
at least in Goodfellas, they got punished for their lifestyle. We know that that Henry in the end of that movie is in hell, having to eat like shitty spaghetti in a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
We know that he's like suffering for it away. And we know that like the other guys in the movie are either dead or in prison. So they're sort of like, well, you shouldn't do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, even though it looks really cool, I'm going to spend most of the movie telling you how cool this lifestyle is. You're
Yeah.
going to see if there's a punishment for it. Where the Wolf of Wall Street, he's the only one that sort of gets punished, and he doesn't really get punished. And we know now that that guy
Yeah.
still fine. He's
Well,
a
that's kind
millionaire.
of America, though, right? They don't get punished. They just, they run government now.
Yeah.
They just.
Yeah, so maybe Martin Scorsese is more cynical than both of these guys, and George Romero and Takeshi.
I think so. I mean, it'd be like
sort
if,
of rectification for action.
yeah, it'd be like if Dawn of the Dead, like, they just keep living there forever and just don't do anything, and then just like start a podcast talking to their friends about movies. That'd be like the
everything that comes back up, and then the people that worked at the mall just show back up and start working again.
Yeah, honestly, that's why I think it reminded me, one of the movies I put about, like, on also the experience, I think I might have mentioned the experience of working in America today, is Zone of Interest. I don't know if you saw that last year. It's like
It's the guy that lived right next door to one of the concentration camps.
Yeah, and was just
It's on
working
my
there.
list.
And
I've not watched it.
Yeah. It's a normal, like, it's a meeting movie, normal, more like, you just don't, like, it's just in the background, but other than that, it's just like, yeah, it's just an hour and a half of this guy just working. But that's kind of the point. It's like, it's just like the normality or normalcy of a job, or like living, or like whatever, of while all the rest of this stuff, like while genocide or anything else is going on. And yeah, it reminded me so much of Dawn of the Dead. Reminded me quite a bit of that. I guess if it was just like, if it didn't have like the ending it did, if it was just like, well, if it almost started like when they were in the mall and then just ended before anything happened in the mall, that would be like, I think, the comparison.
Yeah, it's a good movie to break into. Some movies that's harder to flesh out what the first, second, third act is. I feel like with Dawn of the Dead, it's very clear. There's like before they get to the mall and then actually dealing with the world, and then when they're in the mall and dealing with like the threat of what's happening, but still being closed off from the world, and then them just being closed off from the world, and then the world sort of jamming its way into it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, do you have any other notes about Hana-bi or Dawn of the Dead?
I'm gonna briefly rifle through this because there's some things that I
want to hear all your thoughts.
some of the funny things I put here. Nishi is a stolen badass. Like, he's in that genre of like he's just like a sort of sad guy that's really cool. And like, even he's not cool because he's so willing to commit violence, but like the coolest scene for me was whenever the Yakuza hitman, who I like that character as well, just puts the empty gun to him, and then he pulls the trigger, and then Nishi doesn't flinch at all. Or
sells it.
Whenever he puts his thumb, whenever the guy holds the gun to his stomach and he puts his thumb between the hammer and
it's such a brutal scene.
He's just like trying to squeeze it. I'm like, this guy's awesome.
The one droplet of blood always gets me.
Oh yeah. And I like that he apologizes to that guy for taking his eye. And then in that scene when he kills the other three, he doesn't kill that guy.
Yeah.
Or even the scene whenever, I guess we get to see some of it, whenever the guy, he's outside of the bank and he shows up and he sticks his hand out and he says,
yeah.
And the guy just sort of laughs it off.
Yeah.
One of the things I put is the first official note was, man, Nishi is a dick to young people. Whenever he has the baseball and he throws it off to the side, I was like, man, this guy's an asshole to young people.
Okay, so Tyler, I guess the last question would be, if you had the movies to recommend based off of these two movies. So for me, I would say if you like zombies, I think I mentioned it, but like for Dawn of the Dead, if you like zombies, I would say go Assault on Precinct 13, because that's, I think, my favorite zombie movie, along with this one, and honestly Night of the Living Dead. And I mean, I just love the few that I've seen. If you like how political and well opinion of America this is, I would go the Jacques Tati movie Jour de Fête, or the Kurosawa movie Stray Dog, or Takeshi Kitano's Outrage trilogy, or Brother. All three, Jour de Fête and Stray Dog, are really good. Jour de Fête, I'm guessing you probably haven't seen it. It's like a lesser known Jacques Tati movie about like 1948, I think, about a French postman who like sees a video of like how efficient American postmen are, and everyone starts making fun of him, saying like, "Oh, you're gonna get replaced by mechanization, and like America, like you need to be more like the Americans." And so he tries to do it, and it just ruins the whole village basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a thing of like we don't want all that technology and like all that consumerism and all that other stuff. It's like a really it's like a big critique. I love that.
A Luddite perspective of
yeah, I don't. It's like romantic about the idea of a French village.
Mm.
You know, whenever I hear Luddite, I always think that negative, but like I guess it's like a positive. Like I agree with Jacques Tati in the movie. It's like France, like French villages should not be like America. You know, most places shouldn't be, but yeah. And then if you like how much this feels like working in late capitalism in modern day America, I would go Zone of Interest, or the Spanish movie called The Executioner, where this guy has to get a job in Spain. It's from like the 50s or 60s under like fascist Spain, and he's just trying to do anything not to be an executioner. He's just like trying to get out of work and do this. But yeah, that's those are the official lists, and I'll throw those up on there. What do you got for Dawn of the Dead? If you like Dawn of the Dead, what's your...
If you like Dawn of the Dead and zombies in general, I would, if Dawn of the Dead's not too depressing for you, or not depressing enough for you, I would suggest Day of the Dead. A lot of people think it's a better movie. It might be, but there's a lot of nostalgia and things that connect me to Dawn of the Dead. I really like Day of the Dead. Don't expect it. It's still going to be like what it is. Like, it's a zombie movie. It's a little bit schlocky, but it's less, I guess, sometimes like Dawn of the Dead has a bit of camp to it. Day of the Dead's way less campy and way more just brutal and disgusting. It's like, I won't spoil anything from it, but there's a great deal more of like a visceral violence, I guess, in that movie. And there's a newer movie. I don't want to mess up what country it is, but maybe France. I don't know. It's called The Night Eats the World.
The Night Eats the World.
The Night Eats the World. So it's a very good modern zombie movie. I feel like it's closer to 28 Days Later than it is like a Zombieland sort of movie. I like the portrayal of zombies in that movie, and it's sort of similar to Dawn of the Dead, and the idea of it's like this guy is able to barricade himself off from everything else, and then how he deals with that the new normal that he has to deal with in that world. That's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil it for anybody because I think they should watch it. And yeah, if for Hana-bi, sorry, for anything like if you want something in that similar vein, if you haven't seen In Bruges, I always recommend In Bruges. For anybody that likes film, I recommend In Bruges. But there's a lot of similar themes, like the dreaminess of it, and the idea that like it's a movie that's very much about judgment, and it's connected to art. It's a movie that's very connected to art, and I feel like that is almost it's a great companion film. That would be a good double feature for anybody. If you haven't seen Hana-bi, which we spoiled the hell out of here, or if you haven't seen In Bruges, I would watch both of those movies in tandem. I feel like that would be
nice.
And
we'll have to get you back on to see In Bruges, so we can do In Bruges with something, because it's been probably 15, 20 years, or I guess not 20, but so whenever it came out.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll come back sometimes. Will have me. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah,
I kept forgetting we were recording. I was like, man, I just like talking to this guy about movies.
That's I'm gonna try and do my flex or whatever. Yeah, that's the. I'm glad. So, did you have another one besides In Bruges?
I did a little bit ago. I don't know if I have one now, but
right as I'm saying I'm a great podcast host, I make you forget what you're.
yeah. I mean, to me, it really stands alone. Like, the closest I feel like you can get is just like a really good 90s anime. Like Picture Poison, most of the ones that came out in that time, but like this, it reminded me of a few episodes of
like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon.
Yeah,
those are the only. That's the closest thing to anime.
The real stuff, you know, Dragon Ball Z.
I've never seen any anime, so
you've never seen Cowboy Bebop?
I've never seen any of it.
Listen, if the listener and to Jeff, if you've not seen Cowboy Bebop, and you happen to like, so if you watch this and you stumble across this and you watch Hana-bi and you're like, man, that's a really good movie, you would absolutely love Cowboy Bebop.
For Hanabi, I would say anything else by, if you like this, and like you will know if you like Takeshi Kitano as a director from watching this movie. So like if you like this, I'm working on a video of his stuff, but like I would say anything else that he did with Joe Hisaishi, you're probably likely to like. From Seen at the Sea, Boiling Point, Sonatine. I think Boiling Point was with him. Kikujiro. Probably the next favorites, Kids Return, which I said earlier is like a, kind of like bunch of shithead high schoolers, like morons as they're called in the movie. It's like Napoleon Dynamite in this. Kikujiro, that's the other. It's like if you like Big Daddy by Adam Sandler. It's like it's like basically a Japanese Takeshi Kitano Big Daddy, but also very sad in some ways. And Sonatine is very close to Hana-bi, Boiling Point. Even the one he did before, Maniac. I always call it Maniac Cop, but that's a different like early. I think it's called Violent Cop.
Violent Cop, yeah, I looked at.
Yeah. And then Brother and Dolls and Zatoichi, and honestly the movie Takeshi's, like, and his Outrage trilogy, but they're a lot sadder. And Ryuzo and the Seven Henchmen. He just came out with, actually, and I will say he just came out with the movie, if you like Police Squad or The Naked Gun. His latest movie just came out, I think Thursday or Friday on Amazon Prime. He thought he was going to retire, but he made like this weird experimental 1 hour, 4 minute movie called I think it's called Broken Rage. That's like, the first half is like a straight up Yakuza gangster story. And then the second half is just a parody of itself, where it becomes like, it's like a Police Squad version of itself. It's like him doing like a little Yakuza movie and then him parodying himself in like a very interesting and experimental way. So
definitely check it out.
Yeah. And anything by Sam Peckinpah and Adam Sandler, always recommend.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. Appreciate you coming on.
No problem, dude. Anytime, really.
Yeah. Everyone else, have a good day. And let me know your thoughts, comments, and stuff wherever you are. And God bless you.
Yeah. Peace out.
Bye.